Hi guys, Ray here, City Fan TV, and I'm here to talk about Julian Alvarez today, who City look like they're just about to sign. And I'm joined by Sam, who you might have seen his scouting report recently about Julian Alvarez on social media. And Sam is all the way over in the US of A. How you doing, Sam?
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, it's all right, man. And you're a big City fan.
Yeah. I'm a pretty big fan, which is, I guess, not normal for somebody all the way in Kentucky in the United States.
Yeah. How did you get into City?
So it's kind of funny because football here has grown a lot more in recent years. I would say. So my fandom, I would say, is fairly recent, just because I never really watched it previously, and even back 10 years ago, it wasn't as easy to get games over here or to see all of the matches. So it kind of started by playing FIFA. Like even for people that because even for people that didn't play, everybody played FIFA. I mean, so many people play it that don't even know anything about the sport. They just love to play it. So that's kind of how it started. And my favorite team was always City, and I just loved playing with them. It was back, in the 2011-12 range
Yeah.
where you'd get Aguero and Dzeko and Balotelli and all those guys, and that was just I just loved playing with them. And ever since then, I thought, well, maybe I should start watching them, and it kind of grew from there.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let's get into Julian Alvarez. I'll give you guys a little bit of background about him to start with. So he's a young Argentine professional footballer. He's playing for River Plate at the moment, and plays as pretty much as a centre forward. He's 21 years old. He'll be 22 at the end of this month, end of January. So still pretty young. He's 1 meter 70 tall, which is 5'7" in old money. So he's about, I think, 1 inch taller than a player that he's been compared to, and that's Sergio Aguero. But he's been at River since, I think, 2016 when he started as youth. He's just looking through his senior career there, 57 appearances, 23 goals. Pretty good return there. And he's been playing recently for the Argentina national team. He's broken into their setup. It's 5 games for them, hasn't scored yet. But he's got some decent numbers so far in the Argentine Premier Division. This season in 2021, so played 35 games and got 20 goals, which is a pretty good number. And total appearances for them, he's had 45 appearances for 22 goals. That's, I think, including the Copa Libertadores. So he's got a good background. He's got a good scoring record. Yes, it's mostly been in the last season, but that's where he's come to everybody's notice, and I think a lot of clubs have been interested in him. There is that. I think you would describe it as the lazy journalism comparison to Sergio Aguero. I mean, he's a similar size, a similar build. He scores goals from outside the box, and he's got a similar celebration. I think he does that as well. So, is that just lazy journalism, or is there some sort of comparison to be made with the two players?
So I think it's kind of both. For most people, they just see short, stocky Argentine center forward who can score a lot of goals, and immediately they're going to compare him to Sergio Aguero. Uh, I think that is pretty lazy, like you said. But at the same time, when you watch his game, he has a lot of similarities to Aguero, and I actually think he said a couple days ago that he tries to model his game after Aguero. So I see a lot of similarities with the pace, especially in a younger Aguero. Once Aguero got older, he lost some of that pace, but um, just the way he bursts forward, the way he shoots from just about any angle, I would say that's a and I would say most top strikers have that, but outside of the top strikers, you don't normally get it where they'll just kind of put it on net from anywhere and they'll make the goalie work from a tight angle where you don't expect them to. And so he does a lot of that where he's kind of fearless, and he's similar in that way to Aguero. I would say he kind of has the more of a look in his eye of being a killer. Like Aguero was a killer, but he was kind of a silent killer.
Hmm.
You know, he just kind of did the job and didn't really talk much about it. Alvarez is, you could just see it in his eyes. He just wants to, kind of like Erling Haaland in a way. He just wants to put you in the ground anytime he's in the box, kind of the Michael Jordan fire in his eyes type feeling. So I definitely see that from him. But the comparisons are somewhat warranted. I mean, they're both, you know, smaller guys who aren't, you know, Aguero's decent in the air, but he's not known for being great in the air, um, and Alvarez is the same way. They're stocky. They have great movement in the box, and they kind of have that burst of pace where wherever the ball is, they just seem to find it and put it in the back of the net. And those are very similar traits. I would say by this point in his career, Alvarez is probably a little more advanced than Aguero was at 21 years old in terms of his doing everything, in terms of his build-up, in terms of his pressing, that kind of stuff. But, you know, obviously Aguero developed into one of the best strikers ever. But I don't think Aguero had all of that at that age.
Yeah.
And that's also, that kind of comes with it's kind of the modern day striker. Back at Aguero's time, it was much less. You didn't see it.
Yeah. I mean, what if you had to summarize Alvarez's strengths and weaknesses? What do you think they are?
So, in terms of his strengths, I mean, he just has the killer instinct in the box that the top strikers have. I mean, I think that's something you just can't teach, where he just seems to find the ball. He's always in the right place. And he's always around the ball, always looking to shoot, and is pretty good at shooting it. And not just from, you know, when I say he's always around the ball in the box, it's not just like he taps it in. It's not like, you know, kind of when people describe Raheem Sterling, they say, well, all he does is tap the ball in. Well, first off, it's a skill to get in those positions to tap the ball in, to just have the positional awareness. So Alvarez has that, but not only does he have that, he can curl one in from outside the box. Like it's, you know, it's not a big deal for him. And so he has very, you know, his ball skills are good. Like he takes their set pieces, which I've never seen a striker take set, like not just, you know, from outside the box, a direct free kick. He'll take it and he'll curl it into the box and he'll take the corners. So he's very good with the ball. He's decent in his build up play. He just always seems, he's got the killer instinct that just not many strikers have, where he's always around the ball and can kind of put it in from anywhere, 2-footed, very quick. And I would say in terms of his weaknesses, it's more of the stuff that Pep really wants in a striker that not a ton of strikers have. So his build-up play, his pressing, and I wouldn't even call them weaknesses. I'd say he'll improve over time with them. River Plate are a fairly progressive team. You know, I wouldn't say anyone plays like City, so I'm not going to say they play like City, but they press. They're very high intensity, and he fits them perfectly. So he, you know, he even had a goal. I watched in one of his matches where he pressed the goalie, took the ball off the goalie, and put it in the net. So he can press. I wouldn't say he's Gabriel Jesus with his pressing. That's kind of another level. But he can press. I'd say sometimes he is a little too risky with his passes. He's a very good passer in the control of the ball, but sometimes he'll try to hit a through ball that's not really there, and cause them to lose the ball. But I also think that, maybe River Plate's emphasis isn't on keeping the ball as much as it is City's. It's more about trying to break out with something. So I think all of those things come with time, but in terms of the raw talent and raw skill that you want a striker to have, I think he's got it all.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously, the Premier League is a totally different league to anywhere else. Do you think, as a young kid coming to a new country and everything else, do you think he can make it in the Premier League with the some of the rough play that he's likely to encounter? And do you think he can make it in Pep's side?
I think with the Premier League, I think he's physical enough. I mean, you kind of don't know when they come from South America because those leagues aren't as well known as Germany or Italy or something like that. But he's fairly physical. It's not like he goes down easily. And in terms of his build, he's not slight. And he kind of reminds you of Aguero in that way, where Aguero was small, but he was thick. And
Yeah,
and I think Alvarez is a lot like that. And I think his killer instinct and eye for goal will allow him to succeed in the league. It's not like nobody at his height has ever succeeded as striker. Uh, so I think he'll be able to adapt. In terms of being in Pep's side, uh, I I don't think this is one that's just going to be loaned out all the time. He seems better than that to me. I think
yeah,
he finished. Did he win the South American Player of the Year or something like that? He's already in the national team squad, which to be an attacker for Argentina and play for River Plate at 21, it's not easy to do.
yeah.
Um, so I think all of those accomplishments will prime him to play for City as a first team player rather than just being one of those guys where we get him and loan him out and get him and loan him out, and 5 years later we sell him for pennies.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk about the deal itself because there's some interesting facets to that deal. It depends where you look, what you read. The initial payment is between 15 and 18 million pounds, which is fair enough. He's going to stay on loan at River Plate until at least the summer, um, and they're playing in the Copa Libertadores. If they advance, there is an option for him to just continue with them till about November, or City can pay an extra 1.2 million pounds to get him in the summer, whether they advance or not. Obviously, if they get knocked out, then he'll come to join City in the summer. So that's the the numbers behind the move. The couple of interesting things is, one, would he want to come in the summer regardless? Because he's probably looking at the World Cup and playing in Qatar. And do you think he would want to stay at River, knowing that he's first choice, he's going to play all the time, he's got no adaptation to make, and he'll pretty much, in my opinion, get into the Argentina side or in the squad for the World Cup? Or do you think he will take that risk? And is it obviously it's a big risk leaving his country, leaving, changing continents, a new style of football, new manager, new language possibly, new culture, new weather, new food, all that, and take the risk of coming to City in the summer, and then hoping to be playing, to keep his name out there, and to be on in that squad for the World Cup. So trying to balance all that together, what do you think he should be doing?
So I actually think it's mutually advantageous for him to be there a little longer. And I say that because for him, I mean, he's young where he's not going to be in the Argentine World Cup squad unless he plays. It's not like it's Messi where Messi can be out for 4 months with an injury, and once he's healthy, he's back in the squad. He's got to get minutes because it's incredibly competitive, especially at striker in Argentina. There are a ton of good Argentine strikers. So it's advantageous for him to get minutes. And we know that if you're playing on the front line for a Pep Guardiola team, you're not going to be at your best in your first year. You're just not. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. And so a couple things is from all the reports, we still plan on bringing a striker in this summer. So, for example, Harry Kane or Erling Haaland, they're going to be the nailed-on starter, which means Alvarez isn't going to get as many games, and it's going to take time for him to develop. And so for him, it's advantageous because he can stay at River Plate, keep performing the way he's performing, and make the World Cup squad. And as long as he, barring any major injury or any crazy dip in form, he'll make the World Cup squad playing at River Plate. For City, it's advantageous because we don't know how it's going to be in the transfer market, I think. I think that somebody's going to have to leave. I don't know if we can bring in 2 strikers and nobody else from this current squad leave. And what it seems like is City still want a left back and they still want another midfielder to replace Fernandinho. There's not going to be enough room in the squad. So I think it might be advantageous for City to let him stay till December or after the World Cup, because for them, they can use that time to whoever's going to leave, whether it might be Gabriel Jesus or Raheem Sterling or whoever. I think somebody's going to leave. I just don't know who. Have them sort that out and then allow him to come in. But also, they don't want him coming into the squad for 4 or 5 months and then all of a sudden he's got to go play with his national team for a month.
The whole of football world is going to stop anyway, so I don't think that'll make that much difference.
Well, I think it's more of the continuity being coached under Pep. I know the whole football world will stop, but in terms of his development, they probably want a longer period with him. I would guess, especially in the beginning when he's learning. So I think it's beneficial to both, and I think it's really good for Alvarez, and he's young enough where it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Or okay, he's going to come join us at age 23. That's pretty young, anyways. So, let him stay at River Plate for another year. And
similar to Aguero. I mean, the things I'm thinking about, it's better for him to get I don't know what they got an echo there. It's better for him to get the pre-season with Pep because you'll get more time with Pep. If you come in January or whenever, you'll get less time with Pep because if you join partway through the season, if you join in, let's say after the World Cup, we'll probably I think back into our league season, and so he's not. Pep's going to be more focused on playing games rather than coaching this kid or helping this kid to adapt. I think that's one issue, and the other thing I want to say is because of it's the amount of money City are spending. Now, City are well known for buying lots of young players from all over the world, and they do it for 2 reasons. One, they might unearth a star, but what's more likely to happen, it happens just about every time, is they will develop a player to sell on and make some money later on down the line. But when you get to a certain price, you think they're not buying this person to develop, sell on, make a profit. When you're looking around the £20 million level, well, I think to myself, if you want to sell him for more money, you have to develop him. Well, if you've got on your hands a 25, 30, 40 million pound player, then surely he should be staying with you because he must be something pretty decent to attract that valuation. So based upon the money that we spent on him, I think we're buying him for Manchester City. We're not buying him, as I said, to coach and loan out, like you say, or be with us for a couple of seasons and sell him for 35, 40 million pounds. I think we're buying him for the long term. And the other then that what you've already said to me makes me ask you leads to another question. How do you think he's the main man right now at River? How will he react if we get someone like Harry Kane or Haaland or looks like Vlahovic is going elsewhere, or somebody else who is automatically the number one striker? How do you think Alvarez will cope being a bit part player for 1 or 2 seasons whilst trying to force his way through?
So I actually think so. A couple things. I think it would actually be nice for him to come in the winter because we've seen the players that we sign in the winter. Um, they get about 6 months, and there's not a ton of expectations on them. They can kind of come in, and by the next season, they're pretty well integrated. So rather than take a year to adjust, it takes about 8 months. Kind of like Laporte. I think that happened with Laporte. I don't know who else we've signed in
Nobody under Pep. Nobody. We
January.
don't sign in. We don't
Yeah,
sign in
we
January.
normally don't, so it's hard. But so I think, and there's not really much pressure on him at that point as well. In terms of him coming in, a couple things. I think that they've probably already had that discussion. I mean, I don't think him or his agents are dumb. They know what City's trying to do um, in terms of signing a different striker. I think it also kind of depends on what striker we sign. So I think Alvarez coming in actually opens us to more options at striker. So, for example, I think it would actually upset him most if we signed Erling Haaland because Haaland is his age, and that's a direct competition. Obviously, I don't know how long Haaland would want to stay or if he'd be one of those players who would stay for 10 years, but Mino Raiola has a record of not having his players stay at one place forever. So it could be that Alvarez is a more long-term signing and Haaland will be here for 3-4 years. Um, Haaland doesn't have the best injury record, so Alvarez really, I mean, he's bound to get injured. So Alvarez can at least, he'll get some time under that. I think if we sign an older striker, it might actually bode well for Alvarez because he can learn under him. If we sign somebody like Harry Kane, who's 29, okay, Kane's got a couple years at the very top left, and then Alvarez will be coming into his own, and it can be that sort of dynamic. Um, Also, wouldn't surprise me. Like I said, I'm not a journalist. I don't really have any sources on this, but if we were to sign somebody like Lewandowski or Benzema, even where they're pretty old,
Yeah.
but if they, we have them for 2 years, and then like somebody at that stage where you know what you're getting from them, they're going to score you a lot of goals, and they'd be great in our squad, but they're past where we buy normally. Um, so I think it kind of depends on who we sign, but Alvarez is kind of, and we know with Pep too, he's going to play the best player. He
Yeah.
doesn't care how much you cost. So I think Alvarez feels good about his chances, no matter who the striker is, and we know that we play plenty of games anyways, so he's going to
Yeah.
get plenty of game time.
Yeah. I mean, I think you'd want the guy, and I think he would have the confidence, the self confidence to back himself against anybody. It's like, well, Erling Haaland's there. Well, I'm going to show you that I'm better than him, and I think you need that. And actually, there's lots of different angles you can look at this. There's another angle I just thought of. It might be beneficial for him to join us after the World Cup, and it depends how you're doing in the league. If you're doing well in the league, for argument's sake, you're going to win the league, and you're 8 or 10 points clear. That might give you Pep a chance to blood a younger player like Alvarez, who's going to come through, and save your main players for the Champions League, for argument's sake. And I just think it depends on how the season's going, whether he got that opportunity as well. So he's obviously a very, very exciting talent, and we are all looking forward to when he actually finally signs and comes to Manchester, and we can see him in the flesh and watch him play live. And finally, your final thoughts. I mean, whenever he comes to City, do you think he'll be a success?
I think so. As long as Pep is our coach. I mean, who knows who's going to coach after him? We don't know. But I think as long as Pep is coaching him, I think he's a phenomenal talent. He has all of the tools to succeed, and he's got the skills of a top striker. Though at least the raw skills at his age. I think if he was in, for example, if he didn't play in Argentina, if he played somewhere in the top 5 European leagues, he would be up there with the top young strikers in Europe right now, with Vlahovic or Alexander Isaac or Holland or some of those guys. Maybe not Holland, but I think he would be up there with those guys, maybe even better than them. But he plays in Argentina, and most of us don't watch River Plate play, so it's kind of the unknown. But I think he'll definitely succeed at City, and he's got all the skills, and as long as he receives the right coaching and is brought up the right way, and with our young talent, with Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, I think he'll do great.
Fantastic. Sam, thank you so much for that wonderful insight on Julian Alvarez. And, let's hope we can see him for ourselves soon enough in Manchester. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome.